Welcome to Collective Solversations. We're Jody and Leah, and we love the fact that you're listening to us because every episode of our podcast, we're inviting you to explore the depths of self discovery and spiritual awakening. We're committed to creating a nurturing space for us that embraces profound themes of soul ascension and collective healing. We're highlighting how experiencing of trauma and suffering can be powerful catalysts for personal transformation. We're going to be having engaging discussions and we'll delve into topics that resonate with your spiritual journey. We're offering you insights that inspire growth and understanding, filling you with compassion and light. Our diverse lineup of guests brings unique perspectives on the human experience, and we're enriching our conversations with soulful wisdom. So take a moment to gather your thoughts, open your heart, and join us in this enlightening adventure. Tune in and let the journey begin. Hey, welcome to Collective Solversations. I am Jody, and I have my friend Leah here with me.
Hi, everybody. How you doing today, Jody?
Yeah, so today's an interesting day. So I just want to let everybody know you've got just Leah and I. I'm not going to say just, you've got Leah and I for this episode, and we're going to unpack some things. We're going to talk about. It's interesting because Leah and I will have these conversations and we'll be like, oh, we should be recording that. So we're just going to kind of let that play out a little bit, and then of course, the way we roll is we let spirit step in and guide us and, give us insights and clarity. And so we do that. And I'm just feeling like, how sometimes when you're like really confused and like you're not seeing things clearly or things are feeling really hard, and, the human aspect of you will be like, we have to think about this some more. We've got to go like figure this out in our mind. But Spirit's just showing me, like, sometimes you just have to show up, but with an open heart and be like, okay, so I don't have all the answers. I'm clearly not doing everything that I need to be doing.
Literally.
And then kind of like give me some help, give me some, some guidance and some help and support along the way. So, yeah. So, how are you doing today?
Well, you just, of course, echoed sort of the sentiment of where I am at. I feel like sometimes you can get into your own SHAT. I'm working so hard on my potty mouth, people. Okay. So I will be spelling today if I can. um, you get so caught in it, and it doesn't matter how, the beautiful connection you might have with spirit, or how grounded you've become, or all the healing that you've done. When there's something that needs to come up, it's coming up, right? And I just went through that experience, and it happened with a lovely, lovely timed guest on our podcast. And Jody was, of course, put in my path to help me sort of work through it at those critical moments. And I think there's a lot of that that's going to come out when we chat today.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And I'm glad that you were feeling okay enough to be able to do this, right? And I wasn't sure if we were going to have this conversation today. So now I'm kind of excited that we're going to be really real and really raw, and that's just kind of how we need to be. So yeah, for sure. I think part of the facade of, being the spiritual light worker, being the healer, the guide, the guru, is that we have to have, like, we have to know everything, we have to understand everything, we have to be everything, and it's the farthest thing from the truth, really.
Absolutely. But I think that we also believe that in ourselves until we finally get the lesson. And that came in pretty strong for me too this week.
Yeah. And you
You're
know what I
very
think?
right.
Yeah, and I think what happens also is you just reach an internal point of like no return, but also you do have this like awareness that comes in where you're like, like when I watched you, have your, the triggers when we were doing the episode, when I could watch that coming through for you, I mean, I've been there. I've had
Mm.
that experience. And so, it's easy once you've kind of been there, done it, and then have the recognition of it, because then the next time it happens to you, you're like, oh yeah, you know what? We did this before, and I'm gonna sit this one out this time because
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't
So
like
funny
the
you
way that
said
went.
that. But for me, I usually play in that lovely space, right? Like because you do get to a point where you're like, oh no, I know that's, but this was a very different experience because I was hiding some parts of myself that I didn't want to like look at.
Yeah.
Because once you get to a certain level of healing, it feels really good, right? Like, let's just be honest. You've gone through the trenches.
Right.
Life's been like freaking hard for how many years? And you get to this place of spirit's just giving me the word stasis. And stasis is nice. Stasis is beautiful for your nervous system. It's beautiful for like the way you can process emotions, right? But
Hmm.
it also can become like a little complacent. And I have to be honest, I think that we can all kind of get there. And I liked my stasis because, it felt really good in comparison to some of the things that I'd had to go through in the past 5 years.
Right.
But I can't stay there. And
Right.
this experience really helped me with that. So just to give the listeners some context, our guest and I and Jody got into the conversation about the concept of duality and good and evil. And I do hold a very different concept. One of the things that this whole experience allowed me to do was to like really get clear on who I am and what I believe versus what others believe, and that's totally okay. My trigger was having to speak that truth in a community of people that I really love and I want to stay connected to. And that's a deep inner child wound. Like if like, and we can go into that if somebody wants, but that was huge. And if I am honest, speaking even on this podcast is huge for me. It's
Right.
it's being seen, having my voice out there. And for some of us, it's not a matter that was just quieted, by our families and our parents. Some of us were hurt to make sure that wasn't happen, right? And when you get to
Right.
that level of wounding, it's really hard to look at that. And so that's what was coming up for me because I have a very different feeling towards some things than a lot of people in the new age community have and a lot of people in the spiritual community to have. And being able to find my own voice is a really scary thing because that's a very deep childhood wound for me.
Yeah. And it's just, I think as we, are consciously, evolving on our ascension journey, on our soul's journey, I think that, the beliefs that we hold and the programming that we hold does change. So even, if I look back at, older versions of myself, I can, look back and say, yeah, you know what, those were things I really held dear to my heart and I felt really strong conviction about them, and definitely would have like been emotional and, easily triggered on the subject or around whatever it was. But now I can look back on that and say, that was just a version of me. And I don't feel those convictions anymore in the same way that I did before.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's, i- it's, and I don't think it's just a, you're different than other people, because I think in the end, I think, if we break it all down and we get the mind out of the way and we get the ego and the pain body out of the way, we kind of all feel the same about stuff. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, in just the simplest form of things, we, fundamentally agree that we don't like evil, that we don't like, the dark, that we don't like suffering, we don't like pain. We don't like it for ourselves, and we certainly don't like it for, anybody else. But I feel like Spirit's just saying things can get jumbled inside us when we, um have too much programming. And for you, I think part of, one of the things that, you will actively seek and work on healing is you worked in a system for, many, many years, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So there's, big programming in that to be politically correct all of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
you watch your P's and Q's and make sure that you're speaking in a certain, way, and making sure that people are not taking offense to anything that you're saying, which is, it's not it's not conducive to healing at all. That's
No, but if you stop there, right? If you stop there and you say it's not conducive to healing, so let's just jump through it, then you miss the opportunity to process why
right.
you're feeling those ways. Because
Yeah.
I can sit there and say to you, Jody, yeah, you're right. I was in a programmed system for 25 years. You're absolutely right. Yes, when these topics were coming out and I was in this jumbled mess of emotions and I couldn't feel my center, absolutely all of that mind stuff was coming through. It's taken me, well, it's been a while now, right? Like it's been a week at least,
Right.
7 days now to parse through what this really was.
Right.
And for me, it really wasn't about the whole programming, because I will sit here and I will tell you over and over again why this is like, I know deeply to the core. That was like part of my massive awakening. And there's still so much for me to shift around that. There's definitely
Yeah.
programming around that. Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking at it. But I know for me, this was this little girl who was really afraid. Like
Right.
she was just really, really afraid. This wasn't just
Right.
a mind program. This wasn't just like I've been working in a system. This was like some true, real wounding that
Yeah.
I did not want to look at. And for some
Right.
of our listeners, like the reality of this, like you want to get real and raw, like repressed emotions come up when you go through these massive spiritual, like activating pieces.
Absolutely.
And so I've been working with some, repressed emotions. It's not the first time. I've been doing that for 5 years now, but
Right.
wow, I thought I was a pro, ladies and gentlemen, and I am not. So boy, oh boy, was I humbled by this experience, and yet also totally like, um, thankful for it, because I know that my sessions and my readings and everything else just are so deeply more connected to people from it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, it's just like all of this stuff is, it's all kind of like buried within our layers, right? It's
Hmm.
always, and I don't care who you are and how many classes you've taken and how many, and this includes me, that stuff that, the little girl, the inner wound, all of that stuff, it will always be there. Like
Exactly.
we are never going to reach up, when spirit's lighting me up on this. Thank you for the
Hmm.
validation, but it will always be there. And so for us to, when it comes up and when it rears its ugly emotional head, we can't condemn ourselves for it and be like, "Oh, you know what? I thought I was further along on that. I thought I'd done the
Yeah.
work, and shame on me for that showing up." And like, why did that show up? But you know what I mean? Like that's, we put
Yeah.
ourselves on this, like, this pedestal that we're supposed to be on, that is like, but we'll never heal every single aspect of ourselves. It just won't happen. So
No,
when
and I
that
think
stuff
the
shows
healing is
up,
seeing it,
yeah,
seeing it. Like
yeah,
the healing is now being able to like say, oh, whoa.
yeah. And when it
Uh,
shows up, be like, okay, I know you.
yeah, exactly. And I needed time and like, oh my goodness, I needed like 24 hours. I needed to like let all that anxiety and adrenaline like rush through. Like
Right,
I'm also dealing with like the physical aspects of stuff, right? Like I'm not
right.
as far along on my
Of
like
course,
physical healing journey.
you didn't just want it to be emotional, did you? You
No.
wanted to,
Gosh, like no, not at all. So all of that stuff. So my body, when I'm holding anxiety, it doesn't just feel like anxiety, it hurts, right? You get
right.
those
Oh yeah.
adrenaline rushes and
And
your
it's
skin
scary, right?
hurts and it's scary. And so
Yeah.
then your thoughts that you usually know are like, oh, that's just a mind projection. We can just move away from that,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now they've all of a sudden got all this like fiery energy that is now
Right.
fueling them. And then that's it, I'm done. So I
Right.
needed 24 hours to like burn all of that out. I wasn't sleeping. And God bless my team. I do love them so, so much. They were there, they're talking to me, they're holding space for me, they're validating things, and they're also trying to like and I knew it, but I couldn't even like connect. Like I was just
Right.
like out of my body at that
Yeah,
point.
too far gone for sure. And you know what the interesting thing about it is, and because when let me know how you felt, after we did the recording and everything, and just guys, at some point, hopefully, you get a chance to. But she made it through like a champ. She like we finished the interview. She didn't like tap out during the middle of it or anything. She made it to the very end.
And I want to have him back because I'd love to
Oh my
unpack it
goodness.
with him
Okay.
as well. Like there's so much learning in this experience.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, oh,
And so Tom and I both, and you guys, if you don't know, Tom is my husband, and he's, one of my gurus. Don't tell him that though; I get too eager. But we both listened to it, and we both were like, we didn't see anything that Leah saw, like meaning as in like we didn't see her lose it, we didn't see her get too emotional, we didn't see her. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's we didn't see that part, and
That's
so
me projecting my emotions
right,
everywhere. Like that's the mess of this, right?
yeah,
You just
yeah,
project that trauma everywhere.
yeah, and so that's even when it was very good, I think that you were able to bring up the stuff and in the way and in such a reserved way. You're so polite when you're
I try.
that, that's definitely, I probably wouldn't have been as polite if it was something that was triggering me. Um, but yeah, like we listened to it, watched it, and we're like, that's a really good episode because there were so many interesting conversations, and it wasn't just a dry, oh, well, here's what he does for a living and here's how he can help you. And we got in to some stuff, and that, I felt like that's the purpose of us doing this work,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I do know the episode will come out. It absolutely will. I just have to explain that I have like a little girl inside that needs to feel really safe before we can move forward right now.
Yeah.
And that will come when I'm able to integrate those big feelings that she has. And I talked, right now, when they're sort of outside of me and they're kind of still a little reactive, I have to have space. Like I have to
Right.
have that compassion for them as sort of external to me. And
Yeah.
until I know that I can sort of, okay, I'm good and she's good and that's all integrated and that part of me is settled. And I know when that is, I'll be okay with letting it go and letting it go out. So it's
Yeah, and
coming.
I think that's beautiful, right? Like I think that that whole thing serves a purpose. It serves a purpose for you definitely. And that
Yeah.
whole, dance that you're going to do with your inner child and that exploration and that kindness and I think I think it's something that we kind of all probably need to do. It's interesting because I'm going to spirit just keeps showing me this, and so I want to see if our listeners kind of have some of the same experiences, and I'm
Mhm.
sure Leah will tell us about as well. But I feel like we are, a lot of the experiences that we have, a lot of the interactions we have with all of the souls that, timely come into our, experiences, they happen for purpose and they happen for us to generate frequencies, aka emotions. That's how it shows up, right? On the physical 3D realm. And I feel like when we don't allow ourselves to feel all of those emotions, they get suppressed in the human body. And that's when the physical stuff starts showing up big time, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
physical illness and the imbalance and
That's
stuff
my
like that.
journey, Jody. Like it's so
Yeah.
funny that Spirit brought that to you because that's my journey. I'm just getting to taking care of myself through like the physical sense.
Right.
I was not even in a place to be able to feed myself well and take supplements and like that wasn't even a possible for me because all of the other layers of myself were so clogged with these emotions that had never been processed.
Right.
And so the last 5 years has been about like, and I'm not even gonna say the last 5 years. I'm gonna be honest. Like the first 2 years, I literally was numbed out. The first year, I was numbed out on the amount of pharmaceuticals that the medical community had put me on.
Right.
And I'm really careful when I want to talk about this because I really like to parse apart the people from the system. And
Right.
so I have been blessed with some lovely guides in the form of doctors in the medical system.
Yeah.
But I am also understanding that they're very limited because they've come through that fallen, regime.
Hmm.
So I was under so much pharmaceuticals for the fibromyalgia and all the other stuff I was going through that I couldn't feel a thing. Like you probably could have taken a pin and pinched me, like poked me with it, and I wouldn't have, like I couldn't feel a
Right.
thing emotionally, meant
Comfortably
like
numb, right?
nothing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even comfortable, right? Because it's still a very painful place. Like my body
Right.
didn't like, but when I say you could have, Spirit just wants me to clarify, you could have pricked me with a pin because I couldn't have told the difference between the pain my body was in and the pain the pin would have inflicted.
Right. Right.
That was the level. So when you think about that, of course, I was needing more and more of the drugs, right?
Right.
And then the drugs stopped working.
Right.
And so then I'm like, I didn't know where else to go. So I turned to pot. I'll be honest with everybody.
Right.
I'll be completely honest. And I loved it because it helped me relax.
Right.
And I'm going to be a little radical here. And I'm going to say that it was brought to me in those moments because I needed it. And that would
Right.
be the beauty of the plant medicine.
Yeah.
It's not to numb out, it was to help me bridge to the point where I could then start processing the emotions without all the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. The next step for you. It was the next step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I'm at the point where, most of that's done. Most of the like, the toxicity that was, being held in my body from the emotional stuff, I'm feeling really good around that, but there's still the emotional stuff. So when I talk about the inner child, when I talk about that kind of healing, it's really deep for me. And I
Right.
know it's a part of, I couldn't get to the part where I'm at now, which is hearing the medical medium information and being ready to hear it and take it in and
Right.
actually love myself and have the energy and the fortitude to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't have any of that before. It was a darker journey to get to even be able to start that.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's also, I think Anthony Williams kind of says it the best, where he says, that healing is like 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. And
Yeah.
sometimes the healing journey looks like that as well. There's a reason why our, inner child is like our deepest wound to heal, because it's literally been with us since the beginning of this incarnation. So we've had, you know, many moments together through that. And I feel like, you know, uh, probably the majority of people have the same experiences that you've had. I've had the same experiences.
Yeah.
And that it's that, we're also in a role. We get put into these roles on this planet, and it's like the hustle and grind stuff, right? Like you've
Oh,
got to
yeah.
constantly go, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to get this job, you've got to be doing, and all that leaves very little time for you to feel anything,
And then when
right?
you start to feel that, you're told that that's, you're depressed, you're anxious, you have a disorder, you
Right.
whatever. So then, we're going to dumb down the feelings because I still
Yeah.
believe that our feelings are signals that we're not supposed to be, like you said, suppressing. We're supposed to actually be listening to.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
and I feel like most people do, and it's, this is no judgment on it, because this is
Mm-mm.
human nature, is that when we start to have the feeling stuff come up, it is, human nature to have a drink, to have,
Smoke a
that's our
joint.
right,
Smoke a joint.
exactly. Right. Right.
That was me.
Or,
Yeah.
and there's other things too that people do that they don't realize has the vibrational effect. They take a sleeping pill. I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping great. So and I know I need to sleep. So I take a sleeping pill. Or, I take this medication to help me with this. And the thing about all of that, when we take anything, whether it's, plant medicine, whether it's herbal, whatever you want it still changes the signal of communication that our body and, our soul is giving us.
Yeah.
And so that means, okay, so if we need that help, like if we need that little bit of help right now, obviously you want to choose the helps that are less destructive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if we compare alcohol vibrationally to pot. There's a big difference, right?
And when you take regular pot to organic, there is a
Right.
difference, right? Like, and
Absolutely.
I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm like a 420. Like, I am so about the personal journey. And
Yeah.
if, like if that's for you, that's for you, zero judgment. So I
Yeah.
get that.
And as long as though, like you have to, this is the thing about it is you have to be mindful of, okay, what is that frequency doing to my body? Is it helping me more, healing me more than it's hurting? So you know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like, okay, so with alcohol, there's literally nothing in there that you could
No,
say,
there's a
yeah,
reason
you
why
know
they're
what?
called spirits, right?
Right,
Like, 'cause it's
right.
such a
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
vibration, right?
And on a
Yeah.
physical level, it kills our liver, it kills all, so there's like no, there's ends up,
Yeah.
but that's okay. With marijuana, it's the same thing. You can say, it's any inhalation of smoke into our lungs is
Yep.
not healthy because
Nope.
our lungs don't like smoke. They like moisture, they don't like dry. And there's tons of like we can, and also we can say, okay, you know what? I'm taking lemon balm and I'm taking B12 and I'm taking all of those, but I'm taking them out of fear because I'm taking
Exactly.
them, you know what I mean? So we can look at everything, and see the vibrational aspect to it. And the key is to be like, is this doing more good for me than it is doing harm? And if it's helping me right now, then let me like get out of my freaking mind about it and be like, this is helping me right now. Let it
And
just help me.
the key is right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. The key is right now. It's if you I always have been, and it's just coming in this morning, actually. It's hilarious that this we're talking about this. But anything at all, including our spiritual teachings, right? Including what we believe, if we're not open and remain open, then they become traps. As much as they are a tool for ascension, they also
Right.
become traps.
Right.
And so it goes both ways, right? It goes in anything. I don't, and I, that was something that I really learned. It goes both ways. And so I'm very mindful now. So as you're talking about, I'm just asking spirit what they're wanting me to, why they're showing me this. What they're wanting to remind me of is that vibration, right? That vibration of, I need the alcohol, or I need the pot, or I need the supplements. It extends into also, I need to find this healer, or I need to try that
Right.
program,
Right.
or or for some people, it's, I need to be really busy with this friend, and then I need to be very busy. It's that anything that's taking you out of that, for me, this is how I gauge it, a place of centered stillness. Like, I can feel that I'm anxious, but I have to make a decision based, like, sort of like, not from that vibration, right?
Right. Right.
And if I
Yeah.
really want to book with this fantastic medium that I met like 5 years ago, I got to be really sure that the reason I'm booking for her is because there's something healing in it, and not because I'm trying to get out of the pain that I'm feeling.
Yeah, that you're not running to it through fear, that you're
Right.
not. Yeah. And here's and I'm just because Spirit's showing me this. I wish they'd slow things down every once in a while because they give it. So I try not to sound like a crazy lady giving it all at once. But here's the thing that they're just showing me right now that we need to understand is on a physical level on this planet, there are dark energies, there are dark entities, there's an agenda, there's a dark side. It does happen in this planet. And one of the things that we all have in common is that we all are filled with pathogens. This is, and it's interesting that they're going to show me it this way, but
I love this conversation. I'm so glad we're going here.
yeah, and so, we all kind of have this basic, like, vibrational energy in our body with all these pathogens. When I say pathogens, I mean viruses, bad bacteria, parasites, heavy metals, chemical toxicity, all of the anything that's bad for your body, right?
Mhm.
We all have this base level. We come into it, right? It's just it's inherited with us. And what happens is these beings, because they're beings, they're vibrational, expressions of energy, they require certain energies to fuel them to keep them going, right?
Absolutely. It's
And the
called
darks,
looshing. You can look it up. It's called looshing, everybody.
okay,
Looshing.
good. And so and the dark agenda knows this. The dark agenda knows what does the entire population have in common? They have these pathogens in them, So what are some of the things that they, that's why when we talk about our food sources, the alcohol, the sky, all of these
The
things.
chemical warfare is that, and I hate the word warfare. I'm going to take that back. The chemicals, because when you put warfare out there, then it scares people. And I don't want to scare people when we talk about this. That's the last vibration we want to be,
Right.
pulling in.
And that's perfect, because my point in all of this is that all of these, pathogens in our body, they feed off the vibration of fear. They love that frequency, right? It's heightened in them. And so the easiest way for us to heal through this is just to be mindful of everything we do, that it's not through that frequency. That's,
Yeah,
in the simplicity of it. I mean, we have to do all the 50 other million things to do to, if you want to be healthy, but that's it's interesting because I've had this conversation with so many people in the last couple of weeks, of people telling me that, their family member has just died from cancer. Have
yes.
you been hearing like that, like having those conversations? Like everybody is dying from
Yeah,
cancer.
what I've been seeing in my field is everybody's just really going through some major stuff. It may not be the but I've seen the cancer cycle in other patterns over the years. So
Mhm. And when I think about this, like just as an example, when I look at, somebody that I know who had a diagnosis of cancer a couple of years ago. This is somebody who was like an exerciser, she ate really well, she was very, health oriented, took her vitamins, did all of that stuff, and she ended up having breast cancer. And I
right,
know that there's like there's it goes down to that again. And so why does she have breast cancer, and the person that is drinking and smoking and going to McDonald's every day, they don't have cancer?
right.
And it goes down to, again, in spiritual saying, it's that commonality that we share, which is that host body, that we have the pathogens. And then what changes things, though, is the emotional component, right?
Absolutely. It sort of overdrives everything and allows us then to open up on this sort of biospiritual level that allows for a different level of agitation. That's kind of
Yeah,
how I feel it.
yeah,
If that's just, it's been coming in a lot for people that there's a whole multidimensionality that we have to be super mindful of.
right.
And that for me is this whole idea that even the frequency of the viruses within our bodies is important in
Yes,
all of the work, right? Because
right.
I'm very much about like the frequencies in our chakras and our bodies, our meridians, our axonal lines, bringing in higher consciousness and spirit through all of this is like, and what's going on in your universe?
Right,
Because
right,
you're a little universe in there and you can't even eat right now, girl. So
right,
you got to start paying attention to what's going on in your universe just as much as everything else.
right. Yeah. And if we can kind of remind that, I love the way that reminder, though, of, okay, so if we're holding all these emotions, all these dense emotions, the anger, the fear, the grief, all of that stuff, the jealousy, the rage, that stuff literally feeds all of the
Yes.
pathogens.
And then they start going crazy and your
Yeah.
body starts to feel like crap. Like I'm going to just get really real and raw. I have an anxiety tummy and I'm sure there's lots of people. We hold a lot. Like when you think about we ingest like our digestive system digests our food, our digestive system, also digests our frequency. So I've been
Right.
holding a lot of anxiety. I go to the bathroom with anxiety and it's not lovely. And so I had to be super reminded that this is not, fearful. This was just these pathogens that I've been holding on to being activated by these high emotions and then all those chemicals that these high emotions are bringing on. And they
Right.
love that, right? They love
Oh, for
that.
sure. It becomes a vicious cycle. And that's part of the,
Hmm.
getting out of that loop, is also because then we're like, well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So is it right? And
Find your own way. That's always my thing.
well, yeah. But I think that if we have that understanding that, okay, so what breaks this loop? What breaks the cycle? Right. So if I understand correctly that I've got these pathogens, everybody has them. So and the guy that's eating McDonald's and drinking a case of beer a day, he's not dying. He doesn't have any symptoms. So we know that that's not just the if you eat bad and you do that, then you're going to die and you're going to get a disease.
That's what
But
they want to
when
tell us. That's what they're trying to
right,
tell us.
right, and I
That
mean,
that's all it is. And
in
it's
the
all
big
our
picture,
fault because
right?
yeah.
But in the big picture of things, if you have that kind of lifestyle, you're probably not going to feel great, and you're not going to be able
Mm-mm.
to enjoy much. It's not great having a hangover and being sick all the time,
But the flip
but
side to that is also that that's everywhere, right? And it's being fed to us, and
it's the
that we live a
norm, right?
lifestyle
Yeah,
that we're so freaking busy that
right,
sometimes that's all people can shove into their gullets. Like,
right,
so when there's Spirit's just reminding me that like there's all that multidimensionality that when we're trying to heal, we have to remind ourselves. There's always like this intention to like turn it back and say, well, I'm not eating well and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And that's not a frequency that I have ever been able to heal through. I've
right, for
always
sure,
needed to understand that this is not just me, right? This is like
right,
a system now has been set up against my healing, and
right.
I've got to get my sovereignty back and figure out how I'm going to do this for me.
Right, exactly. And then having the understanding that again, okay, so all these suppressed emotions that I have that I haven't been allowing myself to process or allowing
Mhm.
myself to even have the awareness that they're in there, right? Without having like any kind of like, judgment, because like that just like layers it down. For example, okay, you've got
Absolutely.
anxiety, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling having panic attacks, and then your brain goes, there's something wrong with me, this is bad, like
Yes.
stop feeling this needs to go away. Like just sinks further into your into your body, right?
Yeah.
That's
Or you
so
get the program of, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. There's something wrong with me.
right,
I'm crazy. What's going on? Why can't I get my SHIT together? Right. And
right,
then you
right.
go into that whole mental path of beating yourself up. And all of that feeds the toxicity and the viruses because it's all
Oh yeah,
frequency, right? Everything
yeah.
is frequency.
Yeah. They have a feeding frenzy, right?
Yeah.
And this is the cool thing, and Spirit just showed me this the other day because I was working with a client that's having anxiety and panic attacks, and he was like, they just come out of nowhere. Like I'll be
Hmm.
like doing nothing. I'll be like just driving my car and not thinking about anything. And then all of a sudden my heart's racing and I feel like I'm gonna die. And Spirit just showed me clearly is what happens is they're like earthquake aftershocks. So let's say a week ago or 2 weeks ago, he had a fight with his child
Yeah.
or his spouse, and had this thing. And in that moment of having that fight and that rage, he didn't shake it off, right? Go and actually shake that adrenaline out of his body.
Yeah. Watch our dogs. They know what to do, right?
Right, right. And then he also like suppressed it more because after the argument with his spouse, he had this dialogue running in his head of now I'm a bad husband and look at how mean
Right.
I was to that person and how right? And all that did was suppress all of that into his physical body. And then, like Spear's saying, they have these afterquakes. And so, like 2 weeks later, he's driving along in his car, not thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, his body's having this recall
Yes.
of this stuff. And it's both Spear's just saying it's physical, it is emotional, mental, and
Mental.
spiritual. It's all of it, right?
Absolutely. And I think you have to figure out on your journey where your entry point on all of this is. I know for me, I had so many, and they're just showing me all the books and all the eating programs, right? And all of the things that I've tried since falling apart in 2019, and I couldn't do any of them because all
Right.
of those other layers were just so they needed safety. They really
Right.
did. Like that was
Right.
my journey. I needed
Right.
to get to a place where I was safe on all those other layers
Yeah.
before then it could finally sink in and say, okay, now I can do the physical healing.
Right.
That was my journey. Other people have to go the other way. They've got to go through the physical stuff to then start
Right.
to move through the other layers. So, the spirit's just saying it's such a personal journey.
Right.
But these kinds of conversations, that's not really, they're just saying it's collective. It's the kind of information that we all have to have before we can really understand what it is we're dealing with. because I'm
Right.
still getting those aftershocks. So the fact
Right.
that those that's coming in for you right now, because of, the experience that I went through like last week and the trigger and all of that, my
Hmm.
body is at the point where just that, right? The experience where you and Tom are looking at saying, well, it wasn't that bad. Like I'm
Right.
not really, for my body, I'm still processing all that
Right. Yeah.
anxiety,
Yeah.
right?
For
And I
sure.
didn't
Yeah.
realize what it was. Like I just thought they were adrenaline rushes, but now that you've put it into context of aftershocks, yeah, like
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
And it's also like, I mean, I had the understanding of it when you were having that experience and the stuff that you were going through as well. I can totally understand it because I can relate to it and I have empathy and compassion about it. And I feel like Spirit's just saying to me, that's where we lack that on our own part,
Yeah.
right? We do the, well, you know what? I'm even afraid to say that I'm not feeling good or I'm feeling this stuff because I don't want anybody to look at me and think, there's something wrong with me or I'm weird or strange or bad or you name
Hmm.
it, right?
Yeah. Or, and then you don't, what happens if, especially if you're if you're a kind of person that isn't as gregarious or doesn't have like a massive, support system, you intend to get stuck in your head and
Right.
you try to process on your own. And
Right.
that I'm going to tell you people, because Jody dropped it, I'm going to pick it up. That's where the funky darkness likes to take place. Like that's where
Right.
they like to come through
Yes.
because they will take things that you are so sure of and find ways to twist it. So
Right.
you've got to make sure that you have someone, anyone that is going to be able to hold space for you so you can
Right.
get the thoughts out. And that's something that you did for me as a friend the next day. And it was such a healing experience because then that allowed me to realize, oh, I need to like create some safety. So I spent about a
Right.
week just creating safety so that I could process. And now I'm on the other side. Um,
Yeah.
so
And that does
that's all of it.
happen. Right. But if you're somebody who, you're just kind of in that kind of dark tangled web stuff right now and you don't have anybody that you can talk to, that you don't have, somebody that you're comfortable enough to go out and say, you know what, I'm losing my shit right now. I'm not having a good day, week, year.
Yeah.
Then, this is, I think, where your guidance team, your angels come in. This is where God comes in because that source energy is always there for us all,
Always.
right? We don't always have the awareness that it's there because when we fall deep into that dark hole, it's a frequency
Mhm.
thing. It's a
Absolutely.
right. So if we can get into a place of like, first of all, Spirit's just saying to me, don't take everything so seriously. I know that that's hard when you're like in the middle of something that feels really, really strong to you. And
Absolutely. And I'm an
right.
Aries, right? I'm an Aries, and we listen. I love myself. I love my Aries people, but we have to be super aware of where the Ram energy can take us.
Right.
I'm usually very placid. It's a place where I love to live, but I still got that Ram energy in me, and that was really brought up for me. So, um, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where I
And I
was
mean,
going with that, but that was important.
and that energy can take us off the road, right? Like it literally derails us, takes us off the road. So it's
Yeah.
just, I feel like, one of the themes that Spirit had, like for me, especially in my stuff this year, was like that really coming into the frequency of compassion, not
Mm,
just for other people, because being an empath, I can very easily have compassion and hold space for other people, but not always easy for myself because, again, we talk about the Aries trait. We're very competitive. We're very, we like things exact. We're can be very type A personality. And so if any time I feel like I'm outside of the lines and where I should be or how I should be feeling or how I'm right. And also, one of the things that we get blessed with is that, that curse of feeling like we're the only ones having this
absolutely.
experience,
Hmm. Nobody
right?
could possibly understand.
Right. Like
right?
there's something definitely wrong with me. Like, why is this just
Yeah.
happening to
Or,
me?
and that really is the flip side is I'm just too afraid to be vulnerable and see if somebody can actually hold me in this space, which is all we all want.
Right.
Like, let's
Right.
just be honest. That's all anybody wants when we get into these spaces is can I tell you how I'm really feeling and you're not going to judge me? And
Yeah.
that's compassion. And
Yeah.
that's that everybody hears it. And I'm really big about this, like this big conscious language, right? So you hear about like Christ consciousness and return crystalline energy and all of that stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
Let's just break this down, people. When it comes down, it's compassion.
Right.
That's it. Like, keep it simple.
Right.
Jody
Yeah.
reminds me of this all the time because my human loves it, nerds out on this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just compassion. That's
Yeah.
all that
And
is.
I have a crazy busy mind too. And it's like, it's interesting because when I got really, really sick 2 years ago, when my like sickness kind of like peaked it with the neurological stuff, one of the things that they took away from me was my ability to like multitask and like think about 50
Yeah.
million things at once. Like I couldn't even go on my computer for more than like 5 minutes at a time without feeling like I was going to explode. And so I feel like that kind of training was like, so they were like, yeah, we don't want you to be doing that. We don't want you
No.
to have 50 million things in your mind. We don't want you to be constantly processing it. And just in case you did not get the memo, Jody, it's going to take you out. It will take you out.
Yes. It will
Right.
not only
And
take you out,
so
it will take you out at the
we,
knees.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's sometimes, whenever I'm talking to anybody, healers, light workers, even clients that, that do this kind of work, and they do like specific, they'll say, yeah, you know what? I've been working on this for good place with it, and now it's like gone. And there's always like that inner voice that says, okay, you're there right now in this moment, but in 2 minutes, you might not be there anymore. And that's okay. Right? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
how
that's the
many,
compassion
right?
that you hold.
Right. Yeah. And it's like this. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it if you get off of the call with somebody and you're feeling amazing and then all of a sudden you're not feeling amazing. Don't worry about it because that's just frequency
Yeah.
expressing itself, moving in and out. And yeah. And again, it's like part of my healing journey is like, yeah, spirit gives this stuff to say to my clients to say, but I
Me
have to
too.
take it
Yeah.
internally. I have to like, yeah, okay, Jody, don't like when you're having a bad day, when you've got a vestibular migraine and it's like taking you out and you're crying like a baby because it fucking sucks. Don't
Yeah.
don't be so hard on yourself about it. Like don't beat yourself up about it because again, spirit says is all the time, this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
It's the falling out of the vibrational frequency that has become very, very evident through this whole process with me. So before my mind would have to stop and be like, oh, is this? And now I feel it immediately. And I'm like, oh no, that's not my soul. And I just like whoop back and it's like, ah, and you just calm. Like it's
And that's
almost
awesome.
like, right? And
Yeah. But sometimes
I'm
that
a,
doesn't
listen.
happen.
Listen, we're Rams, okay? And what my team chuckles about all the time is like not only do we ram through things, but sometimes our lessons have to be rammed at us. Like
Right.
it's reciprocal energy. So they're always
Right.
talking to me about that. So I needed this ramming to understand that, I know exactly what it feels like. I was just letting mind get in the way. And
Yeah.
now I can feel it and I'm like, oh, nope. No, thank you. I'm just going to sit here and watch the show. And I'm just
Right.
going to hold my heart space and just, you know, hold the spirit of compassion. Like that's
Right.
so where I am. I love how you said that because all week long, my clients that have been coming in have been coming in highly activated, which,
Right.
we talk about that a lot. Like they show
Well,
us kind
like
of what we
attracts
need to
like,
see.
right? So
Exactly and highly activated and really needing somebody to hold space and really needing somebody to be able to hear spirit's messages and like not filter them in any way and not taint them in any way through any
right.
lens And by the end of it, I'm like, oh, okay, thank God I had that lesson because I don't know that I would have been as good at what I was able to do
Right.
through it. So yeah, there's always,
Well, I
and
know
that's
we thank
reciprocal.
spirit for that, but I can tell you honestly, in all the years I've been seeing clients, that there's been a million times where I'm like, can you please stop giving the life lessons to me first in order to help people? Like,
And
please,
have
because
they
like
stopped doing that yet? Have they
no,
stopped? No.
they don't. No, they don't.
No.
They don't. It just keeps on showing up like that. I guess that's the program that I enrolled in.
Yeah.
Definitely next time we'll have to look at the fine print on that agreement. But
There's a lot of stuff that's shifting though. I
oh
feel
yeah,
it like I'm a really big believer in like macrocosm and microcosm, right? Like yes, we all
right,
want to look at the universe and we all want to love on it and I love it and I'm so cosmic and that's why I call myself Cosmic Heart. But like the reality is we're like these little universes inside. And so
right,
whatever we want to heal outside of ourselves, so many of us light workers and empaths, we want to like run and heal the world.
right.
But that's usually because there's so many unhealed parts of ourselves that we are just running away from and we don't want to heal. So I'm
Exactly.
starting to like
Distractions. Yeah.
just, the world outside's a little funky. So I'm going to be really extra mindful about my world inside for the next little while and how
Right.
funky it's going to be.
Yes, for sure. And that again, and that's where things can kind of just become jumbled, and because once once you start to have the awareness of, the big picture of things, it's a lot. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's a lot. Like, we're feeling this stuff because the collective is feeling this stuff, and then the planet, and then it's a
It
lot.
is a lot. And then we drop these truth bombs in these little, splashes of demonic energies and attachments and
Right,
entities and
right,
low vibration. And so that's when I'm always being reminded that, it all has to be done, with the higher awareness that everybody's taking things at their own pace. It's their
right,
journey, their soul contract. I will never sit across from somebody and ever have like, oh, I know why they're doing that. How would I know? I didn't sit at that, high council table and write that contract with
right,
the
right,
soul.
right,
I'm
right,
just going to tell you what I get. And
right,
what's happening is people are starting to really say, like, I can't do this anymore. I
right,
can't manage these emotions. I can't handle how sick I am. I can't keep going. And spirit's just saying, out of that darkness comes light,
right.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
and I
most of the
saw it this
time,
week. Oh no, I'm a firm
sometimes though
believer.
you just don't. I remember Eckhart Tolle said this. This was like years ago, and he was talking about the collective shift and the awakening of Earth and the new Earth and all of
Yeah,
that. And somebody asked him a question, about what about the souls that like are not doing the work, and what about the souls that are not doing the healing? And he just simply said they won't be here anymore. Like it was just either you're going to do the work, you're like going to get in the trenches, and you're going to be getting your hands dirty, and the stuff is going to come up, and that's going to be what you do, or you're not. And
yeah.
if you're not going to, that's not, this is Spirit's just saying, it's not going to be a free ride anymore. It's literally going to be, no, next time,
There's
go,
no
like
more of
you're not
that.
here. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
more free rides if you really are committed to doing the ascension work and not the airy fairy. This is ascension, and then like no, like the real
Right.
stuff. Like and with like and the spirit always uses this term when the boots hit the ground, right? Like
Right.
not
Right.
the gorgeous cosmic stuff that I love, but when the boots hit
Right.
the ground,
Right.
um, it is about us. It is about our individual journey, and it's about, can we rehabilitate what's fallen inside of us, all our wounds, all our
Right.
pains, all our
Right.
sickness, our physical body, all of that. That's the only slice of heaven that we can take care of, like truly.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Because
And
out
so
of that, everything else will come. Like that's how I
exactly.
feel. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, we again, it's that programming of like this is how everything needs to look on the outside, but realistically, this is how everything has to feel on the inside.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Right? Like that's and again, it's a process. Like we go through it. Like if you were to look at some, and you, Leah, would have known me back in this, but my I wouldn't get to see a client. I wouldn't come to go show up at work. I certainly wouldn't show up on one of these without my hair being done, without my face being done, without my
Mm.
clothes, my jewelry, all that stuff. And I was giving very little attention to the inside of me though. But it was
Right.
like, as long as that outside looks like that and that's how I'm being projected, then it's all good.
Right.
And that just won't cut it anymore for anybody, right? Like
On
it
in
just,
any way, on any
no.
level. You can't bypass the emotional stuff because it's going to come out.
Yeah.
You can't bypass the mental stuff because like it just is. You have to be doing the work. And it doesn't have
Right.
to be scary. That's the thing. I don't want people to be like, "Oh my God, I'm not doing the work.
Right.
What am I supposed to do? I'm not going to be here anymore. Oh my God." No, it's literally just what's the one thing? Like what's the one I remember, and I know you have these stories, Jody. I know because we've shared them with each other when your tears and your knees hit the floor at the same time, or you can't get yourself out of bed for like the spins and the sickness.
Right.
What's the one thing? What's the one thing? And that's how you just start this journey.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly. You're coming in through God, through source. That's
Yeah. And it
the
might just be starting a medical medium protocol. Like that might be what it is for you. It might
right.
just be for me, it was, really going in deep into meditation. Like whatever it is,
Yeah,
it's
whatever
got
that
to
thing
start.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is whenever something feels like so mounting and so like, okay, I've got all of this stuff, where do I start? You just start. Like
Yeah. I
whether
have a
it's
yeah.
one
Sorry. Go
thing,
ahead.
whether it's, yeah, like, I say with clients when we're doing the healing protocols, the medical mediumship, if you were starting your morning with coffee and now you're starting your morning with lemon water, it's a start. That's where you
Yes.
start. Like and if you're somebody that, is allowing people to energetically drain you, you create some boundaries. It's a start, right? Like
Right.
and what happens is all these starts start to build momentum, and
Mm-hmm.
then it starts to change your insides, right? Which then attracts other outsides,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's part of the process. But and again, it's like that, two steps forward, four steps back. It will happen. It's going to happen. You're going to have moments on your spiritual journey where you're like, I thought I did all that. I thought I healed all that. Why is it coming up for me again? And that's because we are multidimensional beings full of layers of frequency.
Right.
So just don't, the trick I think is, don't be shocked by it. Don't be like put out by it. Be like, oh, okay, this is here now. So I've got some tools in my toolkit. I've been through this before, right?
Mm.
I think it's very rare if you're like, well, haven't had some kind of experience similar to it, right?
Oh,
At
for
this stage in
sure.
the game. So if you
Yeah.
have that reminder of, what, I've been here before, and I survived it. I came through it, right?
Yeah, and I think that we get caught in the fear of it all, and so we forget those high, like just
Right.
that soul information. Like I know this,
Yes.
and so Spirit was just reminding me that a lot, and so glad you mentioned it. That whole point of taking a look at the relationships in your life
Hmm.
and what is really going on there was a big point for changing the vibration inside of me, and that was that was like for me it was the healing catalyst.
Right.
It wasn't about food to begin with. It wasn't about anything. It was literally about
Relationships.
relationships. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was it for me. And then, and through that, I've now come into this, like what I like to call a much more right relationship with myself. And
Right.
now I can start taking care of the physical stuff. And I want to start the stuff that is calling to me through whatever protocol it is. I
Yeah.
had to get there first vibrationally before I could be a match to things like the medical medium protocol. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's just like that reminder though, too, like, we will never, I've been married for 22 years. You're never going to have the perfect relationship where it's like all everything that you've ever wanted and every need is being met. It's
Yeah.
not, because the perfect relationship is where you guys can grow with each other through life lessons, where you can
Yes.
discover things, where this is why, like if you have a best friend and you get into fights or arguments, that's great. Then have that allowing that, oh, here's something coming up that we're going to grow through together. We're going to come out of the other side. We're going to be slightly better. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody loves to talk about commitment, right? What is that? Like commitment and stuff. But commitment is literally like, we're going to go through the shit. Like we're going to trigger each other. We're going to get angry at each other. There are going to be days where I need to hold your little children. There are going to be days when you need to hold my little
Right.
children. And
Right.
we're committed that we're going to get to the other side of it because that's the only way foundation can, like, they're showing me concrete, like concrete can be created, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's in anything. Like some of us have
Absolutely.
never even really had really true sister friendship relationships.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
some of us, I know that's true for men. Like I know that very like clearly that men have even been even more cut off from this part of themselves that
Definitely.
need that
Yeah.
authentic relationship.
Right. For
So it's a
sure.
big part of your vibration to be thinking about as well. And it was a big part of my healing entry point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the interactions. We remind ourselves that we come here for experience. We don't come here just for great experiences. We just come here for experience in general, and that can include everything. So yeah, we
Yeah,
definitely have. So we've got Leah and I've got some more guests coming up where we're kind of taking the lead where spirit's showing us to go. There's so much to unpack and unfold and and heal, right? Through what we're doing.
absolutely. And I feel like because of us being able to kind of sit here and be authentic together, we'll be able to sort of unpack this kind of stuff as our lives unfold over the next little while
Yeah.
together.
And so you guys will know that Leah and I will always show up being raw, being real, telling you the stuff we're going through. Yes, we are in a position where we do counsel people, we do have clients, we do act as guides, but we're not ascended masters. And
No,
so
we are
even if
all
we're just
masters ascending.
exactly right. So even if we're just able to help somebody that is two steps behind us, that
Yeah.
is a huge help, right? That serves a purpose. And just a reminder for everybody out there too, this is, when people, and we'll have to do an episode on this, but finding your soul's purpose, right? Having the purpose of it.
Yes.
Sometimes your purpose is like literally saying, you know what? I feel really bad today. My anxiety is high. My bodies feel bad. My head is bad, but I'm not going to let it take me out. I'm going to do what I need to do. And then that person that is like sitting by themselves in tears and thinking they're dying and something is wrong, they hear that from you and they go,
Yes.
oh, okay, there's the light. I see the light.
I love that because I know that I have struggled with the balance between when spirit wants to bring me an example from my life to sort of to help connect, and I'm always
Right.
hesitant because I'm like, I don't want to talk about me, like this is not, but it is so that that person knows they're not alone, right? It's
Right.
that
Right.
real human connection
Right.
that
Yeah.
if I or you or anybody else was like 50 steps ahead, how could we connect with people when we're
Right.
so far ahead,
Right.
right?
It's unreachable. It feels unreachable for sure.
Exactly, exactly. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, man, Jody, I get that whole toxic entities in my intestines and let's get the food in there. Yeah, follow that, right? Or if you're like, oh yeah, no, Leah, I kind of get that idea about inner child and I got to look at that, follow that. Like
Right.
your soul kind of knows. It'll light you up. It doesn't always feel yummy, but it will pull you towards where you need to go.
Yeah, and they always highlight the most important things, right? There's
Yeah.
again, your mind's having over 6,000 thoughts in a day. That's a lot of thoughts.
That's just exhausting just thinking about it. Oh my
So
God.
pay attention to the highlight reel. Don't worry about don't go through and unpack the entire thing. Just follow the highlights.
Yeah. No, I really love that. And I think that this is a really good place to sort of put a pause, it feels like.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
suspect there's going to be more one-on-one chats with us, Jody and Leah, along the way. So I hope everybody enjoyed it.
For sure. And then remember, guys, to do, follow, share, leave the comments, interact with us, send us emails if you have guests that you think you would like us to bring on. And yeah, and stay tuned for us airing that episode, that the
It
episode
will
that
come.
never happened, that, well, it did happen, but
And I really do, the empathetic, just human, not the empath, just the empathetic human,
yes,
would love to have our guest back on so that we can also unpack the conversation with him because, he
yeah,
was part of this, and
for
I want
sure.
to bring him back. I'm sure he has a perspective to share. And I
Yes.
also think there's other parts of the conversation that we'll get into where Jody will have some things to share that I think will be different than what I was feeling or I might be feeling. So it'll be
Oh,
interesting.
absolutely. Don't worry
Yeah.
about my stuff showing up because it shows up on a daily basis.
And I love it. Listen, I need to see women who are like, yeah, this is my stuff and it's mine and I'm owning it. And that's
Right.
good because that's a confidence that we need. It doesn't mean we splash it on everybody. It's a very different thing, right? Like I'm
Right.
always,
Absolutely.
don't splash it on people.
Yes.
But if
Yes.
it's your stuff, you gotta own it.
Absolutely. And you have to give it permission to express itself. And remember, we can't push anything down because it doesn't
No.
serve us. Allow it to express ourselves. Give your body the shake. Get some movement. Yeah, there's, so many. We have thankfully so
And
many
meet it
tools.
with compassion. Just try
Absolutely.
your best to meet it with compassion. If you can't do anything else,
Yeah.
just try to meet it with, because that's going to be the basis for everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So this was wonderful. And we are sending you guys blessings. And thank you for listening to us. And we will talk to y'all soon.
Much love. God bless all. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Collective Soulversations. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it as enlightening and inspiring as we did. To keep up with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. And if you liked what you heard today, please give us a like and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you meaningful discussions. If you have discussion ideas or guests you would like to hear us have a soulversation with, reach out at any time to our personal socials. You can find Jody Jones on Facebook and Instagram, and me, Leah Exidia, at Cosmic Heart Intuitive Services in those same spaces. Looking forward to our next soulversation next week, sending you so much gratitude and love.